Yes, hello everyone. Welcome back to WD18, the Watford fan channel. Welcome to a special video today. We've got Tom Jordan from the Back of the Net podcast, the Bournemouth fan channel. Tom, how you doing, mate? And great to have you on today.
Yeah, cheers for having me on, mate. Yeah, not too bad considering the form and stuff at the moment with our club. But yeah, we'll see what happens.
Top man, thanks for joining me today, mate. We're going to be talking all things Dan Gosling today. It was announced today that Watford had signed him on a 2.5-year contract from Bournemouth. It was rumoured to be 2.5, then 3 years, and the club confirmed it was 2.5 years. It got a mixed reaction, I think, from Watford fans, Tom. But from a Bournemouth perspective, what was the reaction from the fan base overall?
Overall, I'd say disappointment from our perspective. I mean, he's definitely someone that's been down the pecking order. He hasn't really featured much this season. Doesn't seem to be in Jason's plans. He was Eddie Howe was a big fan of him, so it seems like it's just not a player for Jason. But regardless of the fact that he's down the pecking order at the moment, I think the fact that he's gone to a direct promotion rival, and we know what Dan Gosling can bring to the party, that's a bit of a concern from our point of view.
Yeah, was he just surplus the requirements, or from your perspective, or do you think actually it probably would have been valuable keeping him hold of him to the end of the season? Because I know he had 6 months left in his contract.
Yeah, so he was obviously Jason wasn't going to offer him a new deal, or the club weren't, which is why this has happened. But from my perspective and a lot of fans' perspective, we feel he could have offered something. I think in terms of technical ability and things like that, yeah, we've probably upgraded. We've just signed Ben Pearson from Preston, who seems a similar sort of player. And obviously, we're yet to see him, but he's rated highly. We've obviously brought in Jack Wilshere. We've got Jefferson Lerma. We've got Lewis Cook. We've got Philip Billings. So we've got a lot of players in that position. And in terms of technical footballing ability, yeah, they probably are better footballers than Dan Gosling. But what Dan Gosling offers you is what I and many fans feel that we're lacking. Certainly of late in performances where, yeah, we've got some really good footballers on the pitch. They're not showing it. But we're missing that hunger, that desire, that will to win. And that epitomises Dan Gosling. And he's never let the club down. Rarely below a kind of 6, 7 out of 10. One of them sort of players. And when you're going for some sort of promotion push, he's the kind of player that you think, I would think with Watford, he's the type of player that you'll think, whether you want to close out a game, whether you need a bit more energy in the midfield, he's someone you could just rely on. And I think players like that, we've certainly saw it the last time we were promoted from this division. They're really valuable. So in that aspect, I'm surprised we've let him go.
So is it almost a bigger blow for Bournemouth, maybe what he brings off the pitch in terms of his personality, his character, and maybe you're miss what you're missing to the dressing room? Because from what I'm reading online, it's been nothing but positive about his attitude, his application, his work rate. He's never put in he's never put in a performance where he can always keep his head held high. From the point of view I see from the Bournemouth fans, is that maybe one of his biggest strengths, his attitude and his application, do you think?
Yeah, definitely. I think what Goz has always lacked is, maybe a lot of people say, his second touch is always a tackle, because he's not the prettiest on the ball. And I guess particularly with Eddie, I guess we've always tried to play quite a possession-based passing, but when he maybe doesn't suit that. But all of our big results kind of in the Premier League, kind of at Chelsea and, certain games that we all remember, is we've always played a Dan Gosling. I always remember, we go to United away, City away, Dan Gosling would play. Because the energy, I mean, he always had this stat. I remember when we first got up to the Premier League, that virtually every weekend in the papers, he was covered the most ground, always, because he is just that hard grafter. The energy he's got is phenomenal. So what he lacks for potentially in kind of, technical, I mean, he's obviously a good footballer. He's played at the highest level.
But maybe the difference, to the top and the kind of average level, is he's not in that bracket, maybe.
Yeah, exactly. And I guess we're just the type of football we're trying to, Jason's trying to implement. He just doesn't see him in that mould. But I think the thing that's difficult for us Bournemouth fans at the moment on current form is that, we've got all these players, but maybe now's the perfect time to get a Dan Gosling in there, because we seem to be lacking that tempo, that energy, that fight. So, a little bit of a disappointing one. And to be fair, regardless, I think when you lose someone who will be considered somewhat of a legend to the football club in a successful spell, it always hurts a little bit. And like I say, I think he was in talks with Nottingham Forest before he's gone to you guys. That would have hurt a bit less, because we don't see them as direct rivals. So, he goes and scores one goal for you and you get promoted. Do you know what I mean? It's that,
Yeah,
it's that kind of side
that's
of it.
really interesting, Tom, because I had the perspective of it when he was joining and when we were linked with a move for him, that I didn't see it as a big positive that Bournemouth were almost letting us have him as a direct promotion rival. I thought it said a lot about the move that they were very, not keen, but they were almost willing to go, you know what, Dan, we can't give you first team football here, you can move on. But for you, you're actually gutted in the sense that he is getting brought to a promotion rival and you feel like he can maybe have a positive impact on us.
Yeah, definitely. And I don't see him as a player that's suddenly going to light up Watford and be unbelievable and play every week. Yeah. But he will add value to the squad. He will be key in games, like I mentioned, trying to grind a game out. He covers so much ground. He'll add competition for places, experience, etc., etc. But I can certainly appreciate why potentially Watford fans will be thinking, well, we've signed in someone who's down the pecking order at Bournemouth. I can understand why there wouldn't be too much excitement around that. Totally. But he will add value to the squad, definitely. And, 90% of what I've seen from the Bournemouth fan base is we're a little bit puzzled by it. I guess the fact that he's out of contract, surplus to requirements, etc., etc. We probably didn't have the say on which club. He probably just could talk to any club, and he's obviously he rejected Nottingham Forest, and whether that be money, whether that be because he sees a better opportunity at Watford, remains to be seen. But we probably haven't handed him to Watford, because if we had got our pick, we probably wouldn't have wanted to. But I think we feel like we shouldn't have allowed that to happen. But yeah, he's been, honestly, he's never let us down, and you'll see a proper workhorse in there who will provide valuable experience at this level.
Yeah, so just in terms of his strengths and weaknesses, Tom, maybe just to give a quick overview to some Watford fans, you mentioned the strength is his energy. Is there maybe aspects of his game that we maybe need to look out for? Don't want to be too negative, but just aspects that maybe are some of his weaknesses, and what else does he bring maybe technically as well in terms of the system he was playing in at Bournemouth?
Yeah, so I think he's not a player that you'll certainly see get on the ball, neat touches, things like that. That's not his game. He's one of them players that the cliche of being better off the ball than on the ball. But what I will say is not too prone to know how you play and your style with the new manager and things like that. But he's very good at pressing high, like I say, with the energy. And what he brings as well is he's a big game player, and he always pops up with important goals. Always. He's always known to just pop up on the edge of the box. I'd probably say he's almost a player that is very good at pressing high up the pitch. And like I say, will pop up with some goals. He's got a knack for doing that in big games. And like I say, a big game player. So, but his high energy and his high press, he almost, I can imagine, without actually knowing, if you were kind of a partner with him in the middle of the park, you would say, I love playing with Dan Gosling, because he does all the hard graft and kind of allows you to play. Okay. And I think if he was in there, I would say if I wanted him, he'd be in there in a free in midfield, allowing a couple of players around him to be a bit more creative, better on the ball, opening things up, and him doing all the hard work and kind of allowing them to show their qualities off it. So, he offers a lot, but you don't expect a real pretty kind of, modern day footballer. He's proper old school, definitely.
That's really interesting you mentioned about the system, Tom, because at Watford under Xisco Munoz, we've been playing a 4-4-2. And I think for me, I don't know whether he's going to go straight in there. We've had Nathaniel Chalobah, Tom Cleverley. A lot of people have likened him to Tom Cleverley in terms of his work rate. It may be his technical ability. It's a similar sort of player. Do you think he, just maybe as an outsider, do you think he goes straight into a Watford line? Do you think he's good enough? Or is he more of a backup option? As you said, you bring him off the bench for those maybe last 20 minutes to put in the hard yards. Do you think he's good enough to go straight into a Watford team?
He's certainly good enough to get in any team in this league. But he will add value to the squad. Whether he'll go straight in, I'm not so sure. I think that's an interesting one, because knowing two of the players that you mentioned there, I've always rated Chalobah, actually. I've always felt that injuries have really hampered his kind of development and progress, because I've always thought he's looked a class act. But Tom Cleverley is an interesting kind of comparison. I think Tom Cleverley's probably a little bit more creative than Dan Gosling. I think Dan Gosling will probably score more goals, but I think they both have similar energy levels. So whether that's someone that them two may rotate a little bit, he might look to, the manager might be looking at Dan Gosling as a similar player to add competition for Cleverley, potentially. But I think what he gives you, if you want to play just the two in there, because obviously a lot of teams play with a 4-3-3, for example, because of, like I've mentioned, Gosling's energy, it almost feels like you've got an extra man sometimes because he works so hard. So that makes a bit more sense to me if you're playing that 4-4-2 because he's very box to box. So, I think healthy competition for Tom Cleverley is probably why he's brought in, because you can see that being, I wouldn't see them two playing together, but I could certainly see them two battling it out for that position.
Yeah. And just in terms of maybe the character and personality, I know you're not working for Bournemouth before you're inside the dressing room, but had there been maybe some good reviews from other players? Is it well known that he's a very good egg, he's a good character inside the dressing room? And actually, the fact he's been at the club since 2014-15 in that promotion season, he knows how to get out the division. I think it's a pretty good bit of business from Watford. It may not be the most glamorous of signings, but he'll do a job. And as you mentioned, Tom, it just seems like he's a really good character. What can you tell us about maybe his personality off the pitch as well?
Yeah, I think that's bang on. I think it's a shrewd signing rather than an exciting, glamorous signing. But yeah, I think that's the thing that's disappointed us the most in terms of the transfer, is that we know what he gives and we know what he's like off the pitch as well as on it. Such a good character, reliable, never lets you down, never been involved in any sort of controversy. Even when he's had an off game, you always go, yeah, but he still gave 100% and still never the worst on the pitch. Do you know what I mean? Very just Mr. Consistent is what I'd say for Dan Gosling. And yeah, I saw a reporter for Bournemouth who's been there a number of years tweet and say that how brilliant he was to always interview and that he never shied away from a question, was just a model pro. And that's exactly what I describe Dan Gosling as, just a model professional who just got on with his job and is just a value to any squad. Like I say, and I just think he'll just add such championship experience as well. He's got out of this league, like you say, and he weirdly, when we got promoted, we played Andrew Sermon and Harry Arter, and he was kind of a player that would just come on in games, but he played far more in the Premier League. And I think by the way I've kind of described him, you can understand what I mean, in the sense that when you go into the Premier League, you maybe have more games as a Watford or a Bournemouth where you go, or maybe away from home here, we'll have an extra body in midfield. Maybe we're going to have less of the ball. So he almost plays more in the Premier League than he does in the Championship because you expect to have more possession.
Yeah.
But yeah, trust me, I can't fault him too much. He's never let us down.
That's really interesting insight, Tom. I really do appreciate you giving us the insight. And I think a lot of Watford fans will be encouraged by what you've been saying today. I'll tell you what, but we've covered Gosling. I just wanted to ask you, actually, from a Bournemouth perspective, while we got you on, what have you made so far this season? There's been a couple of questions in the chat. Are you Tyndall out, Tom? I'll tell you what, straight up, are you Tyndall out, Tom?
No, I'm not that. Anyone from Bournemouth that watches our podcast will know I'm not Tyndall out. I'm not that sort of character. I'm very positive, which is difficult at the moment. I think once you appoint someone with no real managerial experience and you kind of give him the opportunity, I'd like to think we'll give him the season to do that. We're in a really bad spell, but we are still hanging on to a playoff place. I was very pro Tyndall when he came in because I felt that losing Eddie, who's an absolute god here, obviously, was always going to be difficult. And I think trying to keep the continuity of only losing one man rather than losing kind of a lot of people when you've just had a setback of relegation. I liked the thought of just giving Tyndall the opportunity. He's been part of an amazing period for the football club. So I was glad we gave him the opportunity. I think what's difficult at the moment goes on to the Gosling thing is that if you're going to give someone like Tyndall the opportunity, you don't want to be letting some players that have been there, part of the journey, let go now as well. It seems odd. We've lost Simon Francis, Charlie Daniels, Mark Pugh, Harry Arter, Andrew Sermon, now Dan Gosling, a lot of players that have been there and been very successful for us. So that's a bit of a concern. It's almost a team of this team, I said to you off air, best team we've ever had in my lifetime at FC Bournemouth in terms of technical ability by a mile. But at the moment, it feels like a team that are going through the motions, expecting to just get results because of the quality and lacking a bit of fight and hunger at the moment, which is difficult to see. But you know what the Championship's like. We've got Sheffield Wednesday on Tuesday and then Birmingham. They're two games that I'd like to think we can bounce back. Suddenly you get a couple of wins. You don't know where it can take you. We've got all teams kind of mid-table or lower half in the next 6 before we face you guys. So you never know in the Championship. Anyone could beat anyone. So a little run and suddenly it all could be looking bright and rosy again. So try to remain upbeat. But if I'd spoke to you a few weeks ago, I'd be saying nothing but win the league. But now I'm thinking probably have to settle for playoffs.
It is really interesting how it changed. I think that's similar with Watford, to be fair. It's really interesting with Watford at the moment because despite us doing quite well in the league and our league place kind of reflecting how well we're doing, there's kind of an underwhelming aspect to this season. There's been something missing. I think that if it's change had to happen, maybe. But there's just something missing at the moment. I think people have become a bit frustrated with our transfer business. But as you know, it's so difficult to do it at the moment. And I just going back onto Dan Gosling, I think it's a good move by the club. And I don't think anyone should be writing him off before we've seen a kick of the ball, by the way. I've seen some negative comments online where we just need to get behind him for starters. Just to wrap up, Tom, how confident are you that Bournemouth can go up this season? It kind of feels that Watford and Bournemouth have got similar parallels in the sense that we've got players, well, we've just been relegated. We've got players on big wages, dropped down to the Championship, potentially underperforming a little bit. Some players anyway, from our perspective. I don't know about Bournemouth. But how confident are you that Bournemouth can go up this season?
Yeah, I mean, I would have been more confident if you'd asked me a month ago. Yeah, I'm still confident because of the talent we've got and because of the squad we've got. We've got such good players. So I'd like to think that they'll bounce back, they'll show a reaction. And then in games that are tight, we've got players, probably similar to yourselves, because I think at the start of the season, when we were on this massive run and weren't losing a game, there were still similar things to what you're saying, where we weren't playing that well. Mm-hmm. But it was almost like we had so much quality that we were just getting over the line.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I'd like to think, we can get back to that to a degree and still be in amongst them playoffs. And if you're in there and you've got a chance. We seem to have a lot of parallels apart from managerial performance. I think we go up together, we go down together. Yeah. I'll tell you something, if we go up together this season, I'll let you have the title this time. I'll take it, mate. We'll see what happens. But just to finish up, in regards to Dan Gosling, like I say, I think a lot of fans, everyone's very, very similar in the sense that from a fan's perspective, what you want from a player is, regardless of performances, you're going to have off games, on games, is you want someone that plays for the shirt, that fights and wants to win and shows that desire and energy throughout. And that's what you've got. So it might not be a glamour signing, but he won't let you down. Brilliant
stuff. That's a great way to wrap up, Tom. Thank you so much for joining us today. If you did enjoy, guys, please do leave a like and make sure you go over to the Back of the Net podcast and AFC Bournemouth fan channel and give the guys a subscribe and get involved with their content because they do some really good stuff. I really do enjoy the match reactions as well that they do. It's great stuff. They get a number of fans on, so make sure you go and check it out and follow Tom on Twitter as well. The link is in the description below. As I said, if you did enjoy the video, please do leave a like. Don't forget to subscribe to WD18 and we'll be back tomorrow for some content ahead of Watford versus QPR. Big game. See you then, guys.